Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Believe in Bears. My name is Joey Christopoulos with my co-host Corey Wootton. But first, today's episode is presented by BetOnline.ag. BetOnline is back and it's better than ever because a new web interface for the rest of the NBA season means more props, odds, and lines than ever before. And that's what makes BetOnline their number one spot for basketball and football action this season. So what are you waiting for? Head on your mobile device and sign up today. Receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use promo code BLEAV50. BLEAV50. Receive that bonus. Basketball, football, NHL, boxing, UFC, you name it. Favorite Vegas casino games, they got it. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season because at BetOnline, it's the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming into the pod. It is week 14. It's a Bears-Packers week. Two teams going in two different directions, but we just got some good news down the pipe in terms of who's going to be starting at quarterback. But first, let's bring in my co-host, former Bears defensive end, Fox 32 Chicago's, and suddenly in the Midwest, tempered weather, 65, 70 degrees, a man who might be on the links before we know it. It's Corey Wootton. What's up, Corey?
Oh, what's going on, man? I'm enjoying this weather. It's almost like I'm in Cali and you're out here. You know what I mean? So, hey, the weather's been real nice around here. It's very golf friendly. That's why everyone always says, man, put your clubs away in December. Not so fast because we have days like this. And the next week is supposed to be 60s. So, wow. I'm loving it.
Someone wrote a letter to Santa, Corey, and your answers have been, and your prayers have been answered. And yeah, man, it's warmer in the STL than it is in LA right now. So good on you. And we're heading into a Bears-Packers game at Lambeau Field this week. Look, not a lot to play for in the wins and losses column, but we're playing for pride at this point, and there is some business to take care of, so let's hit it right away. Wednesday's practice report just came out as we're recording this right now. This Wednesday afternoon. We've got Andy Dalton did not practice with the left hand. Travis Gibson out with an illness. We'll see what happens there. Cairo Santos also out with an illness. Definitely something to monitor as well. A little surprise in the injury report was David Montgomery. Shoulder, groin, glute. Corey, I don't know if you've ever had that triple combo before, but that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. And then finally, the most important one, obviously Hakeem Hicks, Allen Robinson limited, Damian Williams limited. But the most important one is Justin Fields practiced in full and fully announced as the starter against Green Bay, Sunday Night Football, under the bright lights. Corey, I'm kind of getting really excited again. I'm excited to see number one back on the field. How about you?
Yeah, I'm getting excited. I'm just hoping the game plan is like we hope it is, right? I hope it's a run heavy first, play calling, setting up the play action, getting him comfortable, kind of like what we saw in the second half of the Pittsburgh game, kind of like what we saw with the first Detroit game when he did really well. I'm just hoping they can continue that plan because, when we try to get a little pass happy at times, it goes sideways, even with Andy Dalton, who they felt comfortable with. I think you just need to script for success. And at this point, we had talked about this in the last pod, that it's really not about stacking wins at this point. It's about getting Justin Fields comfortable because the future is bright with him, and we just have to get his confidence up. And I think you hit the nail on the head. If we could go out these last, 4 or 5 games and really set a statement, and have Justin Fields perform well, leave the fan base feeling reinvigorated for next season, excited for what he has to offer. And obviously we know there's going to be changes, but really have this fan base excited because, Chicago Bears fans are diehard regardless. But if we can do that going into the offseason, I think it would be huge, not only for Justin Fields' confidence coming into next season, right? Because the biggest growth you see with quarterbacks usually is year 1 to year 2. And I'm really excited for that.
That's cool. That's an interesting perspective there on the 1 year to 2 year jump. Corey, I hope you appreciate this because this is something your old ball coach used to say, Lovie Smith. I'm cutting this into quarters, right? We're cutting the season into quarters. So officially, this is the last game of the season for me, Corey, because after that, it does open up that 4-game window, which is a brand new season where we could hopefully look at this team with some fresh eyes and say, hey, maybe we can walk into this offseason with a little bit of motivation and also a little bit of optimism from a Bears fan's perspective. So, Corey, are you telling me that, let's just say, Aaron Rodgers gets the ball in the first quarter and rips us down the field for a 6-play, 78-yard drive and goes up 7-0. Are you saying that the Bears shouldn't panic and not get pass heavy and maybe stick to the game plan? Is that what you're intimating here?
That's what I'm saying. At that point, it's only a 1-score game, so you're still in it. Don't panic. Don't hit the panic button yet. So run the football. You have 3 talented backs. I guess we'll see, as the week goes on, if Montgomery will play or not. I imagine he will. I think he's really trying to prove that he's worthy of an extension. I think he's playing for an extension, even though that might not work out the way he wants to. But I think he's, trying to prove himself, because anytime he's out there, Khalil Herbert to shine, Damian Williams to shine. So, it's kind of like that thing. You don't want to miss something. So I think if he's feeling pretty good, I think he's going to get ready to go. But I think you have to run the football, especially when you're playing against a guy like Aaron Rodgers. In my opinion, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You have to keep him off the field. How do you do that? You start with the run game, right? And then how do you get Justin Fields comfortable? You start with that running game, right? You set it up. You have play actions. You got booch. You have sprint outs, different things you can do to kind of combat that and get his confidence up.
So, Corey, before we're going to hop into your keys to what it will take for the Bears to upset the Packers, who I believe are 12.5-point favorites heading into this Week 14 matchup. My first question for you, though, is I was thinking about this heading into the week, and, you hear from a lot of really smart people out there that talk about when Tom Brady, the way to get to Tom Brady sometimes is obviously pressure, but it's kind of in his face pressure. It's that interior, up the gut, put it in his face, kind of limit his clock so he's got to make quicker decisions, or maybe a decision that he doesn't want to make in that time. In terms of Aaron Rodgers, my biggest fear in this game is when Aaron Rodgers is on the run, rolling out, improvising, finding Robert Tonyan, or having a situation where Devante Adams gets 4.5 seconds to either spring loose or get open. So in your opinion, in terms of Aaron Rodgers, are you a guy that wants to bring that pressure into his face, or are you more trying to get that contain on the edge there and maybe trying to get him from behind?
Yeah, from the game plan that I had last time, and I think this is every week against Aaron Rodgers, and this is something that Rod Marinelli stressed when I was playing for the Bears, because I played that left defensive end. It was always set the edge on the defense's left side, Aaron Rodgers' right side, because he loves to scramble to his right. And if you could set the edge, set that contain, he's proven that if you can keep him in the pocket, that's when if he does struggle, that's when he does struggle. Contain him in the pocket. He's actually, more efficient on the run. And it baffles me because most quarterbacks are not that case, but Aaron Rodgers is absolutely unbelievable when he's on the run. So whoever that left end is, hopefully it's Gibson. If he could set that edge on that left side and then keep Aaron Rodgers in the pocket, that's when he's shown that he struggles. So, most people, like you said, it's up the gut pressure. But for him, it's keeping him contained in the pocket because he likes to get out. He kind of has a little bit of happy feet at times. He's kind of, wants to get out of that pocket. That's where he feels most comfortable. So if you could set the edge with him, and I made the mistake back in 2012 where we had the game pretty close at home in December. And, I had 2 sacks in the game. I probably could have had another one if I just followed what Rod Marinelli had told me, set the edge and let it go. And there was a blitz, right, up the gut. And all week he had been stressing, listen, do not rush the same way you normally would. Just set the edge, just run to the level of the quarterback, and you will have a sack. But instead, I tried to hit a move on the right tackle, and I got stuck on him, and Aaron Rodgers just hit the corner on me. And then he hit Randall Cobb for like a 60-yard gain. And I just remember running over to the sidelines, and he was just like, what the? I can't even say it on air right now. But he chewed me out. But that's the thing. If you just be smart, if you don't try to win your rushes, if you just set the edge, you can be successful against a guy like Rodgers. Because early on, we had a really good game plan. I had 2 sacks in the game. Julius Peppers had 2 sacks. Izzy Adonijah had another sack. So we really were able to get after him. It was just kind of in that second half, that play really sparked him, because the thing is he struggled before that. But once he got on the move and completed that 60-yard throw on the run, that's when he started to get the confidence up. And then they scored like 2 or 3 consecutive times on us. So that's why you need to keep him inside that pocket.
And some of the memories that I have from that defense that you played on back in the day was also this concept of you had these situations where early in the game, Aaron Rodgers, if he didn't like what he saw, he would chuck it out of bounds, which was me feeling like you guys would have a huge win on that particular play of, I don't like what I see. I'm in this pocket a little too long and I can't escape. So he would chuck it out of bounds and live to play another day because he's smart. But again, that goes for a win for the Chicago Bears defense. Real quick, man, I got to ask you because, after a Bears game, I kind of sift around Twitter. I watch a lot of different stuff. I try and do some post game. and just kind of get a feel for other people's perspectives and emotions. And I sometimes watch that NBC Sports Chicago one on Twitter, and I see Alex Brown. Did you play with Alex Brown?
No. So
Yeah,
we
that was
just
a
missed
ship's
each other.
passing in the night. Yeah, but you played with Briggs, right?
Yep. I played
Yeah,
with
so
Briggs.
you played with Briggs, and dude, I swear it's just uncanny that they talk about Rod Marinelli as often as you bring up Rod Marinelli. So
Yeah.
can you, for the listeners, just kind of walk us through just what Rod Marinelli meant for not just your career, but that Bears defense? Because it seems like, to a man, everyone speaks so highly about him and still remembers some of the principles and teachings that he taught way back when.
Yeah, I think Rod Marinelli reminds me a lot of Vic Fangio. I think some of the current Bears players probably hold Vic Fangio in that same regard. I just think the fact that he was so attention to detail and discipline. I think those are the similarities I see between Vic Fangio and Rod Marinelli. They really stressed the importance of discipline. Like, everybody has a gap, everybody has an assignment, and it was all about trust, right? Urlacher and Briggs were trusting that I was going to be in the right spot, or that Julius Peppers or Henry Melton, Stephen Paya. So as everybody had the trust that we were going to do exactly what we were going to do. And the whole Russian cover philosophy, I think, everybody bought into that, right? As a defensive lineman, you love getting off the football, right? I look back at college and some other times, like, we did read step, we did other kinds of attacking styles, but it wasn't like that. Like, literally getting off the football was everything. And when you have a defensive line coach telling you to get off, like, oh no, you're slow. Like, in practice, all we worked was get off. Like, and if we were a split second late, he'd call us out every time. You're slow. So it was just so ingrained of us to get off the football. And I don't know if you remember that 2012 season when we were one of the best defenses in the history of the NFL. It just seemed like every time
started what, 6-1, right?
7-1.
7-1. Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. And then we were 10-6 and the Lovey got fired. But that year was unbelievable because if you just put on the tape of our front four, we just got off the football. You look at a guy like Henry Melton, he had his Pro Bowl season. Julius Peppers had a Pro Bowl season. I had 7 sacks that year. Adonijah, I think, had 7 sacks as well. So we just had such a good rotation, and it came down to getting off the football. So, and I think the players just really loved a guy like Rod Marinelli. Like, you'd run through a wall for him. And that's why you see Lance Briggs and Alex Brown talking about the same kind of stories, bringing him, because he's like one of those gurus, like that equivalent to a Vic Fangio for the modern day people, the Bears fans. People really bought into what he did, and they would run through a wall for him. And the crazy thing is 2012, right? That was the year we had Marinelli and Lovey. Then Lovey was fired with Marinelli the next year. 2013, we had Mel Tucker, who's now at Michigan State, tried to run the same exact defense, pretty much had the same personnel with the exception of Brian Urlacher. And we went from top 5 defense to dead last. So I think that tells you everything you need to know about coaching staff. Because you look at the Bears, same situation with Vic Fangio, right? When he left, right, then we had Chuck Pagano, right? And we were still okay, and then, now we have Sean Desai, and the defense has kind of gone downhill since Vic Fangio's gone. I think that's what you saw with the Bears for a while, after Rod Marinelli and company. We were trying to figure things out. But, I think people underestimate how important it is to have a defensive coordinator like a Rod Marinelli, like a Vic Fangio, and stay. And that sets the blueprint of the defense.
Yeah, I love hearing that because, one, I just think it's really cool that all of you guys, all you former NFLers that were under Marinelli, still speak so highly of him. And when a teacher passes something on to a student, for the student to still remember it years later, that's the whole process, man. That's when you know that it really works. And I also remember that you're providing interesting insight of, I'm sure Chuck Pagano, I'm pretty positive Chuck Pagano is a great man, and I'm pretty sure he's a pretty damn good coach. I also remember when he came in, he was like, I don't want to change anything about Fangio's defense, which was kind of sort of a move to appeal towards the players, when I'm sort of thinking now moving forward, I don't know about changing, but I think it was about challenging, right? Like, I want to come in and take those things and continue to challenge you and keep, whatever it is, iron sharpens iron, or whatever you want to put it out there. And maybe that was something that added to complacency, might not be the right word, but that slow slip that we've seen since 2018 to probably where we are now. Maybe that's kind of a product of that. I'm not sure.
I think the thing is like this. Every coordinator has their own scheme, and they need to run their own scheme. I don't think you should try to copy anybody else's. I think that's when stuff kind of goes awry and defenses struggle
Hmm.
because, you were brought in to run your specific type of defense. Oh, well, I don't want to change it. I want to do this, but it never works out the same. And you could try to copy something, but it never exactly works out the same. We countless examples in the league where everybody says, oh, we're going to keep this the same. And then, that example from 2012 to 2013 just blows my mind because we had the same personnel, like literally, like it just baffled me, and trying to keep something same, but there was stuff that was off, right? You remember how I told you that 2013 game, when we played the Packers, this was to make or break to get into the playoffs at that point. And it was the final game of the season, 2013. And there was a fumble on the field, right? And we should have picked up the ball, but we did not. And that's something that would have never happened with Lovey and Marinelli, just because we stressed scoop and score, pick up every ball, leave no stone unturned, like treat every play, every ball on the ground like it's a fumble, a loose ball. We were just so ingrained with that. And we weren't ingrained the same way, with Mel Tucker. And that's no disrespect to him or anything, but it's just differences. It's the little details that make the difference. That's why we were a top 5 defense, setting certain records in the NFL about takeaways, this, that, and the other, to going to the next year being dead last. And it's those little details, discipline, things like that add up and make the difference in this league.
And look, like a lot of things in life, I think it's fair to criticize Mel Tucker for back then at that time, because look at what he's done now. Like, we all come through this life at different points, right? And I think the lessons that he learned in Chicago is probably what makes him the coach that's now getting that long-term extension at Michigan State, right?
Exactly.
And the evolution through time, obviously that's sometimes the bumps in the road. Sometimes they conflict with your football team and the football team that you love, and you end up being like, get out of here. Who's to say what – I mean, let's be real. Who's to say what happens to Matt Nagy the next 5 or 10 years and whether he can apply some of the lessons that he's learned, or more importantly, the missteps that he's had with this Bears team, and maybe apply them somewhere down the road and actually – I don't know if he gets another head coaching job, but maybe apply it to a coordinator's job moving forward. But, Corey, here's the important thing, man. We got to get to some of the keys to a Bears victory. If the Bears are going to upset the Packers – in week 14, hit us off a little bit. We're just going to do a couple of these, and then we're going to do a little story time, so stick around to the end of the pod. I want to hear a couple stories with Corey here.
So I think first and foremost is limit the turnovers, right? You look at Green Bay, of all the offenses in the league, they play a pretty perfect offense, when you talk about limiting turnovers. And, you look at Aaron Rodgers, his 23 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 2 of those picks were in the first game of the season. I think that tells you everything you need to know. So we have to limit the turnovers. That's kind of been the issue with us as an offense. You look at last game with four interceptions right there. Justin Fields at times has thrown interceptions. But how do we do that, right? And I think, this kind of ties in to 2 different keys. I think running the football, that's my key every week, but you limit turnovers by running the football, right? You get it established, right? And especially the weather's getting colder. You're trying to keep Aaron Rodgers off the field. You run the football. Then you have a young quarterback in Justin Fields. You're trying to get him confident. You establish the running game. And, at times I feel like the Bears coordinators, they get away from the running game. And I think it should be your best friend, especially you have 3 talented backs, Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, Damian Williams. Utilize them, especially maybe if David Montgomery's not in there, you have Khalil Herbert that can step in and not miss a beat at all. So I think you have options over there, and we're trying to get Justin Fields comfortable, right? You're trying to get him in a situation where he looked like in that Pittsburgh second half. How did you do that? You got the running game going. Same thing with Detroit. And I think when he gets those hard play actions, how do you set that up off the running game? So I think we really need to establish that running game. That's my key every week. But, especially keeping Aaron Rodgers off the field, gotta run the football. So, yeah, that's kind of 2 keys in there. But, yeah, that's kind of my same every week, limiting the turnovers, getting that run game going, because the Bears, we can run the football. It just seems like at times, I told you, we need to be a 60-40 until we can get Justin Fields comfortable. Then you could kind of, 50-50. Then you can maybe go 60-40 leaning to pass when he gets comfortable. But for right now, 60-40 run heavy.
You're not saying a 46-3 like the Patriots just did?
No.
That was crazy, Corey.
Right? Hey, I mean, it won them the game.
It sure
Like
did, man.
I don't understand. Like it doesn't matter. Bill Belichick doesn't worry about anybody else, and I
He
wish more
doesn't give
coaches.
he doesn't give a
uh,
rip what
I
happened,
know. I
right?
wish more coaches felt the same way he did. Like because everyone's always like, well, what if this? What? No, he's like, listen, we won the game, and that's what matters, right? It doesn't matter that Mac Jones didn't have the throws down the field. Or we won the game, and
Yeah,
that's
and,
what
and,
matters.
and Corey is a former player, man. They play each other again in 2 weeks. What kind of what kind of tape do the Bills look at? Right? Like
Yeah,
exactly do they look at and say,
and
what can we
and
take
and
away from this game and put it into the next one? They have no idea. It's a clean thing
I
all
know.
over again.
And that's why Bill Belichick owns the Bills. Like it just like year in and year out, it doesn't matter. And I just love that about him, right? Because like I said earlier, I think too many coaches worry about everything on the outside, right? When the only thing that should matter is what is the best game plan to win the game, right? Because wins and losses are what matters about this league, right? Stats don't matter, right? How many times you threw touchdowns or how many yards you threw for, because that looks all cute and fancy and all this. But at the end of the day, right? When there's a Super Bowl winner, it's a win or a loss. And that's all that matters. So you could play, smash mouth football that's not pretty, this, that, and the other. But if it gets you a win, why does it matter? It shouldn't.
Is there a D nice in the house? Is there a D nice? Nice. No, you're completely right, man. And if I can maybe piggyback off of your key, because one of the things that I'm really interested in, and Bears fans, I think we should really cue in on this, and I think you can kind of tell the difference of which way goes the other is, I think we've done a really nice job at the first 15, right? The first 15 plays, the first drive of Justin Fields, I thought have been pretty crisp. He's been efficient. We've done some things, I think, at times, as you mentioned, sprint outs, get him on the move a little bit, move it a little side to side. But then after that, when it's time for either Fields or the coaching staff to make an adjustment based off that 15, we've really struggled. And then all of a sudden we end up the first half and we don't have a lot of production and we're asking ourselves questions. So I'm really curious to see where they go with that, right? Like, and I think we'll probably be able to tell, right, Corey? Like, if Justin Fields is inaccurate on a few throws, we'll be able to read that very easily as Bears fans and analysts. But after that first 15 plays of the first couple of drives, I want to really key in and see what kind of play calls they dial up, because that's when I'm going to really ask myself the question, is the coaching staff doing the right thing by Fields? Because, again, that's been, I think, another issue and why we struggled to score points in the first half, and that's what I want to see for one of the keys.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's what comes down to it. That's why this coaching staff is not going to be here next year, because of their lack of game planning, and adjustments. I think you hit the nail on the head. The first 15 are usually do well. And then after that, taking what the defense gives you, they kind of struggle with. And I think, in this situation where they're trying to figure out, Matt Nagy was trying to figure himself out as a game caller, play caller, who's struggling. You got to run the football. I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. And I think that's how you get in the rhythms and flows of a game is establishing that run. And I told you, as a defensive lineman, it is so demoralizing when a team could just run the football on you for 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards a pop. And then all of a sudden they put in that play action there and it really takes you off balance. So that's why I really don't understand why they do not just be a run heavy team, have more pro style sets. What I love, when we're trying to protect the tackles at this point, right? It disguises the pass more. So you can do both. But I think, when you have two tight ends, you got a guy like Cole Kmet that can block, Jimmy Graham that can block. You got three talented backs. It just baffles me why you're not giving them the workload in a game, and at times, Andy Dalton was throwing the ball 40 something times. David Montgomery had 12 carries one of the games, and it just baffled me. So I think for that reason, these coaches won't be here next year. And, I just hope whoever is the next in line for the Bears job and coordinating job is a true game plan master that's able to, make adjustments, have a great game plan, really cater to a young quarterback in Justin Fields.
And Corey, let me ask you a question. This is a learning question for me because, this is something, first of all, this is something that I do in Madden. So you can tell me whether it applies to actual real football in real life. But my whole thing is that when you run the ball And hopefully this hammers home why you are such a big proponent of making that the first and foremost core principle of this offense. When you run the ball 4, 5, 6 times, right, aren't you able to learn a lot? Like you learn where the gap fits are with these linebackers. You learn who is blitzing, who isn't blitzing, who's maybe shading to the left or to the right. So, for example, if you have a middle linebacker and after 4, 5, 6 plays of running the ball, you kind of get the idea of where he's supposed to be, and then you can exploit that with tight end space. And isn't that the whole idea of like learning the little gaps and stuff? Because if you're just passing with these different routes all the time, it kind of feels it can be a little bit more of a grab bag, and that's when a defense can trick you by doing nickel blitz and other kinds of stuff.
Exactly. Why do you think our defense has really struggled this season? Because we haven't been able to stop the run. Teams have said it from the beginning in their game plan. Hey, we're going to run the football on the Bears. And remember, I talked about gap discipline. That's been the biggest issue. So, right, you're testing out a team's gap discipline when you're establishing that run. You're trying to get it going, right? And that's why a lot of teams, the first 2 drives, if you can really stuff the run, then a lot of times they abandon it, right? Because like, oh, they're gap discipline, they're really stuffing the run. And then as a defensive lineman, you love that because then you can pin your ears back. You know what they're going to do at that point. They're like, oh, we cannot run the football on them. We have to pass the ball. And then, they get in gun, and then, the tackles don't disguise their kick sets, and you love that. So that's what you want to do. But, I think the running game just really keeps a team honest. And that's why defensively we haven't been able to, in certain situations really get after the passer. First and second we've been pretty good, but in third downs, we really haven't because teams have been running the football on us. And what does that do? That tires out your pass rush. So you have some of your top pass rushers in there that have been playing the run consistently, and then they've had multiple first downs. And then you're in a situation on third and medium and long, and you're expecting them to get off the ball, and they don't have that same burst that they did earlier on in the game. So.
And look, man, maybe to put a final button on it before we get another key to a Bears victory is I just want to get this out there too as well, that I think the narrative of the last 3 or 4 years of the NFL is that it's a passing league. This is the modern NFL. It's a passing league. And I just want to slow people down on that, and I want to keep people in the present moment of specifically this season. Because if you look around this league, I get it. Yes, of course, it is a predominantly passing-oriented league, and we're playing a guy named Aaron Rodgers, who we're going to see a lot of passes from this season. But in terms of the rest of the league, look around, everybody. Like, Derek Carr is leading the NFL in passing yards, right? Patrick Mahomes isn't having the greatest season in the world. Why? Because they don't have a great running game, because Edwards-Helaire has been on the IR. We've mentioned the Buccaneers over the past couple of weeks. Look what happened to the Tennessee Titans when Derrick Henry went down. I mean, the list goes really on and on. The Dallas Cowboys. Oh, the world-beating Dallas Cowboys the first months of the season. Well, guess what? Zeke has a banged-up knee, and as good as Tony Pollard is as a change of pace, if they don't have that up-the-middle action, all of a sudden CeeDee Lamb and all these other receivers and Dak Prescott don't look that amazing. So go around the league right now, and if you'll and the Arizona Cardinals, who did we play last week? James Conner with 12 touchdowns. If you find any team that's over 500 fighting for a playoff spot right now, you're going to see a team that in some way or some fashion, Bills, Ravens with their quarterbacks, they run the football, dude. You know what I mean? Like, this is old school, like, grinded out stuff. This is what the NFL is really right now. And my final one real quick is there been an adjustment? Because that's what NFL is. It goes in cycles. We've been saying passing league, passing league, passing league, passing league. And I saw a stat about how some of the defensive players have gotten lighter. You know what I mean? Like a middle linebacker, you don't have to be 250, 260. You can play it now at 230. So isn't this kind of like just the NFL sort of switching now of like running may be the way to win football games with the way that defenses are now catering towards pass? Does that make any sense?
Yeah. No, I think there has been a shift. I think what you have been seeing, right? You look at a guy like Ryan Tannehill, right? He came from Miami, really struggled over there, had maybe one good season. And then he goes to Tennessee and he has this resurgence of his career, right? And everyone's like, oh my goodness, why? Well, Derrick Henry. That's the reason why.
Yeah.
And I think people realize that every team that's kind of had a quarterback that was maybe struggling at one point in time that's now balling out is because of the running game, right? It takes the pressure off the quarterback. And that's what I've been saying week in and week out with the Bears, with Justin Fields, a young guy trying to get his confidence up. the running game, and then you mentioned Patrick Mahomes, right? They've kind of been up and down this season because of the lack of running game. It's not because Patrick Mahomes isn't a good quarterback, but like I said, there's only a few quarterbacks in this league that can really carry a team without a run game. And one of the guys is the guy we're playing this week in Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he did it for years.
He's the exception to the point I'm trying to make.
To the rule, right?
Yeah.
That's the exception, right? Most teams out there, they cannot survive without a running game. And look at this year with Green Bay. They're really getting the running game going. The stats haven't wooed and wow you, but Dylan and Aaron Jones have really put some good numbers together as a 1-2 punch, something that Aaron Rodgers really hasn't had in the past. That's why, this season for Green Bay, I mean, I expect them to go pretty far just because they're playing really good defense. They're running the football well this year, and Aaron Rodgers, as always, doesn't turn the ball over. So I think that's a recipe. When you look at the top teams in the NFC, you look at Green Bay, you look at Tampa Bay, you look at Arizona that we
Dallas,
played as well, and the Rams.
But Darrell Henderson got hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't believe in the Rams, but I think Tampa Bay and Green Bay, I think those are going to be the two teams at the end, possibly in the NFC Championship. And I think it comes down to that running game because they're running the ball really well, both teams right now. And that's how you make a long playoff run and a Super Bowl run is with that running game.
Corey, any more keys to hopefully a Bears upset against the Packers in Week 14?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the stats. The stats don't lie. Aaron Rodgers to Devante Adams. You have to stop Devante Adams. In the games that they've lost and Aaron Rodgers hasn't done well in that first game of the season, you limit Devante Adams. I mean, he has 1,000 yards. The next leading receiver is Randall Cobb. He has 300 and some change. So that tells you everything you need to know. It's not very balanced when it comes to the wide receiver position. So if you can limit, Devante Adams' production, and I wouldn't mind double covering him in situations. I think this is a game where, hey, this game really isn't for anything but your pride. And if you take number one option, one of the best receivers in the game, there's no shame in that. I'd rather have somebody else beat me at that point. I'd rather have an aging Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard beat me rather than, Devante Adams, because he's a game breaker. And you look at the last game that we played against the Packers, it was a really close game. And then Devante Adams had that long pass that set up the touchdown where Aaron Rodgers said, "I own you, Chicago," when he scrambled. But I think if you can contain him, we could have a lot more success. I don't know if we're going to win the game, but I think we have a better chance to win the game if we can contain Devante Adams.
Yeah, and maybe my final key is, I don't want to sound too simplistic about this, but I want us to try and attempt to keep it close somehow, and however means that is. Now, whether that means maybe holding them to a field goal in the red zone, maybe that is what you're talking about, the turnovers. It definitely is what you're talking about in terms of running the ball in time of possession, because I would really love nothing more than the Bears to be down 7 or less points in the fourth quarter with Justin Fields and have the ball in his hands. I heard a little bit of the press conference quotes today. Again, I love what Justin Fields says at press conferences. He's really cool, too, where, like, if someone asks kind of a dumb question, he'll just respectfully give you a short answer. But if you ask an interesting question, he will give a very thoughtful response. And today he was like, you know what? I love being the underdog. I thrive on it. I want it. Give it to me. Let's go. And this is a true underdog situation for Justin Fields. And I'm excited that he's going to be back on the field. And I just want the game to be close, man, because I kind of feel like, I'm not saying our defense is going to hold up, but I kind of feel like if it's close in the fourth quarter, I feel like our rookie quarterback can put together a drive and give us something to cheer about, albeit for maybe a minute or two before we hand it back over to Aaron Rodgers, and we'll see what happens. But if we can somehow keep this kind of close and not make it a laugher, and it's not 37-13 with 4 minutes in the third quarter, if we can somehow do a little bit similar to what we had last time, I don't know, 20-14, something like that, maybe a 23-16, get it in the rookie's hands, I think it could be kind of an exciting finish, whether we win or lose. And I just want to see that because, again, to your point, we want to see moments and progress. It isn't really about wins and losses anymore.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. On honest opinion, what do you think the final score is going to be in this game?
I'm terrified. I'm terrified. I'm thinking they get at least 32. So to be kind of on the generous side. I was thinking somewhere along the lines of like 34-21.
Mm-hmm.
The 21, probably one of those touchdowns comes later in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's not because I don't think Justin Fields is going to perform poorly. It has more to do with, I think, and we've seen this, it's a tale as old as time. Rodgers comes down, first 2 drives, touchdown plus field goal, or touchdown plus touchdown. We're down 10-0, 14-0 with maybe 6 or 5 minutes to go in the first quarter. And we panic. And the play calling starts looking real different. And we start doing these deep routes, these deep steps, and we're asking a lot of our rookie quarterback and our offensive line. A couple 3-and-outs later, and the game can get out of hand really quickly. And I don't think our coaching staff is equipped to handle that kind of adversity, especially when Aaron Rodgers is coming at you. And that's my fear right now. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking this is going to be a blowout. In my opinion, I think Green Bay plays really good at home. I think they're really starting to hit their stride offensively. Aaron Rodgers looked really good. The defense is playing really well. You look at a guy like Rashawn Gary, who's really stepped up this year in his 3rd year, with Zadarius Smith out. He's their leading sack artist this year. You look at Kenny Clark in the middle. He's been really impressive. Last game, he had 2 sacks against the Bears. I mean, he looked impressive in there. And then you look at how they're running the football right now, Green Bay. This is a game I worry about that it gets out of hand early. Kind of similar to how the Arizona Cardinals game was at first. It was looking like it was going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be along those lines, in my opinion. I just worry about the game planning. I think Justin Fields has the talent. I just don't think these coaches know how to game plan for him. And I think they panic when someone goes up 7-0 or 14-0 in the first half, first quarter. I think they have to get pass happy, and you should do the opposite, especially when it's still in the first quarter, or first half rather. So I really worry about that. I'm just hoping that we can run the football and just time possession, in this game. I mean, I think that would be a win if we could keep it close to a 1-score, 2-score game. But in my opinion, I think it's going to be a 34-14 or 17 type of game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And it's so funny, man. I'm right on board with you because the whole concept, in my opinion, is when you go down 14-0, there's something intrinsically already in there that says, look, we're having problems in this, that, and the other area. Shorten the game. Run the ball.
Exactly.
Shorten the game. Do what you keep it. Control what you can control in life. And by doing that is possessing the football. And we do that over and over and over again. And what's funny about that, Corey, is if we're both picking the Bears to lose, which might keep us tied heading into this 4-game stretch, Corey, a battle royale of me and you and our game picks to see who will win this season's BLEAV. Before we get out of here, man, we teased it in the last pod, and I want to hear it. I want to hear. Let's do some stories with Corey. Some Corey.
All right.
Take us back, to the playing days. Maybe bring us in. Tell us a Lambeau Field story if you got it. Maybe something in, the locker room. Something happened in the Green Bay bar. I don't even care, man. You have the floor, man. Take us behind the curtain.
Yeah. So I'll do it to 2013. That was the only time when I was there when we beat Green Bay. Or actually, in 2011, did we beat them at Green Bay? I think with Josh McCown, right? Didn't we?
Oh wow! Oh, so wait, McCown would be with Trestman, right?
Oh shoot! Yes,
2013. So yeah. I don't think it was 11 because
so it was 13.
11 was the Green Bay Jamarcus Webb game where Cutler Marcus Webb. That was not.
Yes, no, that wasn't that. That was 2013 with Josh McCown. I knew Josh McCown, but I had the years messed up. So 2013, that's the game where Shea McClellan had 3 sacks in the game. One of them he broke Aaron Rodgers' collarbone, and then they were so mad. The O-line, they were trying to hit him after the play, every play, because they were so mad because they thought that meant their season, right? Broken collarbone. I think it said 6 to 8 weeks at that point. And then we knew, when he was out, we never want anyone to get injured, but we had a good feeling about winning that game, especially at Green Bay, Lambeau. Really hard place to play because I feel like once they start scoring and the crowd gets into it, a guy like Aaron Rodgers just really gets going. And he was getting going in that game, and then he had the collarbone.
Yeah, it was in the red. They were in the red zone, right?
Yeah, they were in the red zone. Yep. And then Seneca Wallace comes in, right, in that game, and he, he's a guy that's been around and speedster, and yeah, we end up going up, and then I remember the last drive that they had, started off with that drive where I had the sack, and then I hit the Chappelle robot. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
game.
exactly.
Hell yeah.
And then yeah,
So I
it
think you
was.
had it done. You did recently, did you not? Last weekend, I think, with your buddy.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah,
At the
yeah,
broadcasting, we did it. So we were interacting with the crowd, and my co-host
I
Gabe
saw
Ramirez
that.
was like, "Yeah, do the robot." So I had to hit it real quick. But yeah, that was one of my favorite sacks because normally when you have a speedy quarterback, right, like Seneca Wallace, he ran a 4.4, speedy guy. And normally I would be nervous about trying to chase him. And I wasn't thinking about anything at all. And I just remember, he tried to juke me. And it was like, those videos you see of animals where you mirror them. And never in my life have I never been nervous to get a quarterback. I was just reacting. Literally. He went that way, I went that way. And literally I got him down, and it was like I didn't think about it, because if you think about it, when you're so open after you beat a offensive guy
Yeah.
and you have the quarterback right there, it's almost kind of like nervous. It's like one of those like catches in the end zone where you're wide open, like Marquise Goodwin had when Andy Dalton a few weeks ago, that
Yeah.
wide open, catch.
You remember he like had like really, like make
It-
sure that he brought that in.
that's normally how it is, when you're going after a quarterback, when you just clearly beat the guy and you're just one-on-one on him, you're like, oh my God, don't mess up, don't mess up. But I didn't even think about anything. I got him down, and I was so excited. I did the robot real quick, and I realized it was 2 minutes, and then I rushed up to the line real quick, and everyone's like, man, what are you doing? It's 2 minutes. You can't be celebrating with that. I was like, man, I got back. I was good.
Yeah.
So, and then we ended up stopping them on that drive and won that game. And it felt good to win it at Lambeau, because that's something that I never did in my career with the Bears. And, it's just honestly one of the best stadiums to play in, with all the history. And the fans are actually nice. You go some places like Philly, and man, the fans are it's funny, man. I remember walking through the tunnel, or walking out of the tunnel, and you see Philly fans like, hey, Wootton, why don't you go F yourself? Huh? And they're talking so much stuff. And I remember that game, my sister who lived in Philly, she was gonna wear my jersey to the game. And I'm like, you know what? Don't even do it, because I feel like they're gonna mess with you. And they're the only stadium to have a holding cell. They have a jail in there because fans are too rowdy. So I told my sister, I was like, don't even wear the jersey. I was like, just wear something that's neutral. Don't wear anything.
Yeah, that wasn't the 52-14 game.
Yes.
That was
when Chip Kelly was there, I think, right?
yeah, which set up the following week, that Packers game, the Randall Cobb game.
Exactly. That was a little disheartening, because that week we had a chance to win the game, and win the division just in that game right there. So, it's unfortunate. That season was so up and down. Even how bad we played defensively, is crazy that we still had a shot to win it in that week.
I remember that season.
17.
Wasn't it like you guys played the Bengals like the first game or something like that?
Yep.
And Jay comes out and he's like ripping it, and it's like the Trestman era,
Exactly.
and it's like, man, this is it, greatest show on Soldier Field turf. Like, here we go. And I remember that game even got close too. Well, like that was a microcosm of the whole season of like we literally thought like we're never gonna not stop scoring. Like, and then
exactly
that game got tighter.
It was the opposite that season, right? Because the season before, it was the offense really struggled, the defense really carried everything, and then 2013, Trestman's there, new defensive coordinator, but same scheme, and we just couldn't get things going. And we just thought if we could have had that same offense the year before, I really think we could have won the Super Bowl, because that Jay and the offense looked really well. It's just defensively we sucked. We were awful. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. I just don't understand. Like, Briggs ended up getting hurt. Peanut Tillman got hurt, halfway through the season. So
it's the twilight of the locker.
Yeah, it was just a rough thing. But yeah, it was just a really weird season, that 2013. And still, despite everything, we had a chance to win that game at Soldier Field against Aaron Rodgers, and we should have won it. And just so you know, that last play where Chris Conti got beat deep, I did get held. You could run back the tape. TJ Lang, my guy, I know him. I played him against college.
I heard there's like a
yes, there's a picture. He held the crap out of me, and I mean, it was like literally like my jersey's getting stretched beyond belief. Like luckily for the stretch technology, because it should have ripped. Yeah. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then Julius Peppers, I think he got held on that play as well. So it was just unfortunate situation. And they never want to call holding when it's you. They never do.
Yeah. So for you and your experience in that Bears defense, I mean, it's fair to say, because obviously Bears fans get super into it, right? We look forward to it. But obviously going to Lambeau, staying in that neighborhood, you know what, like the stadium's literally in the middle of like a little suburban neighborhood, right? And the locker room, the whole mystique. And of course it's a division rival, but you can confirm, you guys got up for that stuff. Like you knew that was coming. Bears Packers, real deal. Maybe a little, just a touch of a different feel to that week.
Yeah, I don't think there's the better rivalry in football, in my opinion, than Bears Packers, regardless of how lopsided it's been as of late, and since even Brett Favre was there. I mean, Green Bay has had that series for a long time, but I think just the energy around it, like. From the fans, the week of the game. And I remember 2010, right? The year that Green Bay won the Super Bowl, right? We're in the NFC Championship against them. Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, rivalry game to get in the Super Bowl. This is my rookie year too. And I'm thinking, man, we are going to go to the Super Bowl. We were rocking. We were rolling on all cylinders. And, the game is close at one point. Urlacher gets a pick, gets tripped up by Aaron Rodgers. And then this is when Jay Cutler has the MCL sprain. He comes out of the game. We have Caleb Haney come in, and then Todd Collins first. He gets hurt, and then Caleb Haney comes in, I believe.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. You're right.
Yeah.
Collins doesn't even make it into the lore of that story. That's crazy.
Exactly. And then the dagger in that game was BJ Raji having a pick six. And then he did the hula dance because he made the Pro Bowl in there. But I mean, that game, like the energy in that stadium was unbelievable. And like, I'm a rookie, I'm playing in the game, I'm part of the rotation, about to make the Super Bowl, I think. And I was just thinking, like, before the game, I'm like, oh, who am I going to invite to the Super Bowl? Who's everybody I'm going to bring to the Super Bowl? My first year, we're going to win the Super Bowl. But I've never had energy in a game like that one. I mean, the weather, like, talk about the ultimate like football game, Bears Packers, NFC Championship, freezing cold, stadiums rocking, Packers fans, Bears fans, the whole week leading up to it. I think it was like, the ticket prices were unbelievable. I think they were saying like StubHub, it was like one of the highest resales ever. Like they were going for like 5 times the price that they normally were. It was unbelievable. Like everybody and their mother was trying to get a ticket. And people in Chicago, hey Corey, I know you probably got a lot of people coming to the game, but any chance you give me some tickets? I'm like, nah, man. I took out the max.
A lot of people.
So yeah, literally everybody and their mother was trying to get their hands on that ticket because it was unbelievable. One game away from the Super Bowl. I was just thinking about what it would be like, for them to bring that stage out there. Your NFC champs going to the Super Bowl, going to play the Steelers. Like, man, it would have been such an incredible feeling. But yeah, it's always tough going against a guy like Aaron Rodgers because he always gives them a chance every year. And you just always thought in your head, like, man, if we had Aaron Rodgers, imagine what the Bears would have been able to do. Like he is one of those guys that, like, that's why it really baffles me why they had so much issues, with them really not respecting him. I feel like, I feel like they didn't truly respect him because a guy of his status and what he's proven, like, to not really try to draft his replacement, not tell him, to try to not go to him what options we need, at wide receiver position or this, that, and the other, really not consult with him like other quarterbacks do, like a Tom Brady, stuff like that. So I think they kind of disrespected him. And, in my opinion, I think they're going to try to make everything right and make him stay. And, you once a Packer, always a Packer.
It's
but I think
towards him coming back now.
Exactly.
Than it was, 3-4 months ago. And if he wins the Super Bowl, I don't know how he walks away from that. I don't.
Exactly. But yeah, man, it's just, I always loved going against him because that's a guy that, like, I know Bears fans hate him, but, like, you got to respect a guy like that, just how good he is and how he approaches the game. Like, there's nothing that he can't do on the field. He can run, He can throw on the run. He can throw in the pocket. He can drop dimes whenever he wants to. He can get sacked 7 times like he did in that one Seahawks game like in 2013 and then still throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like, he is one of those guys that, like, you got to respect him as a competitor. And I feel like if you don't, you're missing out. You know, I know he's destroyed the Bears since his time there, but you got to respect him as a player and as a quarterback.
Corey, I tell you, I'm just glad we drafted Cedric Benson. Whoops. No, the thing about Rodgers too is, he's the guy I love to hate, and we've done it on this pod previously. I think when we played him last time, I think he's the most talented, physically, mentally quarterback that I've ever seen. Maybe not the most decorated or prolific in terms of Super Bowls and stuff. He's the most talented I've ever seen. And the one part that I always think about, going back to your time, you're playing against them, is he'll still say it, is that he feels like his greatest opponent, the one that gave him the biggest, the hardest challenge and the most mind games, was Urlacher. I mean, he says that freely, and Urlacher picked him off, I think, like 3-4 times throughout his career. And so I think that adds a little extra mystique to that Bears-Packers rivalry. And, you know, maybe another chapter will go into the books this weekend, and maybe that chapter will also open up a new chapter to maybe a coaching staff and maybe something else moving forward in the future. Corey, we got to get out of here, man. Stick around next week, listeners, because we're playing the Minnesota Vikings, and we're going to do another story with Corey, and Corey is going to do the Brett Favre story. You're going to walk us through the play. You're going to walk us through what happened. You're going to walk us through where we're at with the movie rights right now.
Right?
Ending with Brett Favre just on the poster, just like lying down with you standing over him. We're going to do that next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today's episode of Believe in Bears was brought to you by betonline.ag. 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. How can you say no to that when you use promo code BLEAV50, BLEAV50. Also, today's episode brought to you by lifeboxjewelry.com. Great offers right now for the holidays and beyond. So happy to have them as a sponsor. Corey, man, we'll see what happens, but then we'll be back early next week with the post game, and then look forward to the Minnesota Vikings. Still a lot to look forward to. Still a lot of Justin Fields to watch. So plenty of reasons to tune in. Corey, man, take us home.
Yeah, man, another exciting week of football. I know the season hasn't gone the way we wanted to, but Bears-Packers doesn't get better than that. Lambeau Field, Justin Fields is back, so hopefully he'll have a strong performance. Need to get the running game going, take the pressure off him, work some of those play actions, get him comfortable out there, right? These last, 5 games of the season, I really want him to get comfortable going into next season. I want him to set his precedents out there and let the league be known, kind of like how it was after that Pittsburgh game, where people really started to notice what he can do. And I think he's special. I think there's some people that really haven't bought into it yet. I think they think, oh, he's okay. I think it comes down to game planning, coaching, and I think next year we'll have both of that. And yeah, I'm excited for the future for him. I really am excited for what we're going to see from Justin Fields. So, hopefully this week, he can come out there, have a strong performance, use his feet, when he needs to. Don't be afraid to use his feet. And then, hey, if he can go toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers, even despite if they lose, I think that'll be a strong performance. I think it would give Bears fans some hope about the future, that the future is bright in Chicago. So appreciate you guys' support. And, you can follow me at Corey Wootton, at Corey Wootton, Corey, W2Os, 2Tson, Twitter, Instagram. And, hopefully we can break down a Bears win. We'll see.
Hey, man, I would love nothing more than that. Check me out on my socials at Joey Sports Guy. Like and subscribe to the podcast, because the season might be a little bit up the track, but there's still plenty to watch, and we're going to bring it every single week right here on Believe in Bears. Thank you so much for checking out this podcast. Be well, be safe. Please be good to each other. And remember, this weekend, it's Bears-Packers. You got to bear down.